Ben Meiselas and Karen Friedman, Agnifolo here from Legal AF. And in the federal defamation trial against Donald Trump brought by E Jean Carroll, federal judge Lewis Kaplan just taught a master class in how to control your courtroom when Donald Trump is trying to create chaos and a circus-like atmosphere during his testimony. So finally, trial resumed. Donald Trump was called to take the stand, but before Donald Trump even took the stand and outside of the view of the jury, federal judge Lewis Kaplan had questions for Alina Habba. What are you going to be asking Mr. Trump right here? Because you are aware, and in very graphic terms, but accurate terms, federal judge Lewis Kaplan spelled out what took place. At a prior trial, Donald Trump was found liable for sexual assault. He had an opportunity to testify. He decided not to testify. There's a doctrine called collateral estoppel. He is bound by that ruling. So your questions cannot relitigate those matters. Donald Trump then tried to blurt out, I wasn't at the trial. I never even met this woman. And then Judge Kaplan jumped in and said, Mr. Trump, keep your voice down. Do you understand me? Keep your voice down. And Donald Trump then listened because he was confronted with someone who was strong and said, just be quiet. Listen to what I'm about to say. So let me pause there. I'm going to then toss it over to you, Karen Friedman Agnifolo, about what happened next. Donald Trump did eventually take the stand. Alina Habba was trying to wiggle around the strict confines of what she was allowed to ask. And the judge says, we're not doing it your way, Ms. Habba. We're going to do it my way, which is the way of the law based on the prior verdict. So take us through what happened next, Karen.
Well, I think you've already spoken longer than Donald Trump was on the actual stand in front of the jury, Ben. That's how short this was, because as you pointed out, this is not a relitigation of the past trial. There was already a trial that litigated the issue about whether or not Donald Trump sexually assaulted E Jean Carroll and whether or not the statements that he made were defamatory. The jury found that they were. And therefore, that does not get relitigated. Donald Trump chose not to attend that trial because it's civil. He doesn't have to attend like he does criminal trials. And he chose not to attend that trial. And so he's stuck with that verdict. And the judge has made that very, very clear. And so this judge really proved the thing that everyone thought was not possible, which is controlling Donald Trump in court. So far, that has eluded every other judge, but this judge did it. And this judge has a reputation for doing that. It's not just Donald Trump who he does this to. You ask anybody who's appeared before Judge Kaplan, he knows what he's doing. He knows how to control a courtroom, and he knows how to protect the jury and make sure that inadmissible evidence does not come in. And so he is going to keep a very, very tight rein. And he did keep it on this in this particular case. And for people who think, oh, this seems unfair, this is civil. This is not criminal. If this was criminal, there would be a lot more information, I think, that could come out and more would be relevant. You don't have things like damages in a criminal case. It's really about guilt or evidence. So or guilt or innocence, I should say. And so it's a totally different thing. This is just about how much money will he have to pay? And so there are only certain things that are relevant regarding that. So one of the questions that the judge permitted Trump to ask was, do you view these allegations as false? And Trump said yes. And he then launched into something after that, and the judge says, okay, everything is stricken after that. But he did say he stood by his deposition. He said that he considered this a false accusation. That was stricken. And the judge really didn't allow much more. Alina Habba did ask why he did this, why he said these things, and whether he intended to hurt her. And he said, no, he was just defending himself. He was defending the presidency, his family, himself. All of that was stricken other than the no, I did not intend to hurt her. That was it. So the judge, there was I think 3 questions that were allowed to be asked, and so then what happened next was Robbie Kaplan, no relation to Judge Lewis Kaplan, who represents E Jean Carroll, cross-examined him, and now the scope of cross-examination is limited only to what comes out in the direct, and that's the case for all trials. That's just how it works. You can only cross-examine based on the scope of the direct. And so since the direct was so limited by the judge, the only question, or the only area, I think it was only one question that Robbie Kaplan asked was, did you attend the first trial? And Donald Trump said no. And then Alina Habba got up and said, did you have counsel? And Trump says, yes, and I was just following the advice of counsel. And again, that was stricken. So the judge struck more of the record than he allowed in. And he showed he's not afraid of Trump. He is absolutely not afraid of him. And he has one job, and that is to control his courtroom and protect the record and protect the jury from inappropriate, inadmissible evidence. And so it's fascinating that all this played out in front of the jury. There was some grumbling under his breath, but loud enough for potentially the jury to hear. Trump did make some statements that he got admonished about, saying things like this is false, or this never happened, or I never met the woman, whatever it is that he said. And Robbie Kaplan brought that to the judge's attention, and the judge said, you're not allowed to do this, right? You're not allowed to just blurt things out, keep your voice down, et cetera. At one point, Trump did try to, even outside the presence of the jury, he tried to speak on the record, and the judge again shot him down and says, you're represented by a lawyer. The lawyer is who speaks on your behalf. And that's that. And so this judge is known to be a stickler for the rules. This is not anything about Trump. This is about the judge and how he controls his courtroom. And frankly, for the first time, I'm seeing that Trump is being treated like anybody else. Even when Alina Habba at one point called him to the stand, she said, when the judge said, do you have any witnesses? He says, yes, calling President Donald Trump to the stand. The judge corrected her in front of the jury and said, you mean Donald John Trump? So it was interesting. He was really not going to allow any shenanigans, anything that remotely could impact the integrity of this trial, and make sure that this really is just about damages, because Trump had his opportunity to attend the first trial, and he could have fought it then, and he chose not to.
The jury's going to be instructed on that as well. So now what happens is the jury has left for the day. Closing arguments will now take place tomorrow, and then there's going to be deliberation. So it's possible as soon as tomorrow we're going to get a verdict. Oftentimes we see Friday verdicts. Jurors don't necessarily want to spend the whole weekend and come back to court on Monday. So I wouldn't be shocked if there's if we see a verdict on Friday. One of the things I also want to note, which you mentioned, Karen, is that what Trump was going to try to do there, which the judge didn't allow because it is very prejudicial and has nothing to do with this case anymore, was Trump was going to try to throw Joe Tacopina under the bus and say that it was his prior lawyer, Joe Tacopina's fault for why he didn't testify at the first trial, and blame Tacopina. And Alina Habba tried to get in a question like that, even though she was warned not to do things like that. Roberta Kaplan, E Jean Carroll's lawyer, immediately objected. It was immediately sustained by Judge Lewis Kaplan. But, you know, a very controlled, appropriately tailored situation in court. And for all of the judges out there who, you know, are fearful that, I don't know what they're fearful of, what Donald Trump's going to do, send some nasty messages, engage in, you know, stochastic terrorism on his social media platform. You know, Trump's going to do that anyway. And what's so critical, and Karen, I know for you as the former #2 district attorney in all of at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, you know, being someone who lived by law and order your entire life. I mean, me as a practicing attorney, you know, for, you know, about 13, 14 years, going into federal courts and following the rules, it's been very frustrating to watch a different set of rules apply to him in these different courtrooms, where it's not treat him worse than anybody. It's just you should be treated like anybody else in the system, while Trump goes on and abuses our legal system. As a plaintiff, he files all this frivolous garbage that kind of puts our legal system and drains resources from it. And then as a criminal defendant or a civil defendant, he behaves in ways that anybody else would be thrown and locked up immediately for that type of behavior. So it was good to see.
I think, Ben, you just put your finger on what the judges are scared of, is if they really do hold his feet to the fire, they have to lock him up. Right. That's the thing that I think the judges want to avoid, because Trump is a potential, he's running for office. Obviously, he's running for president. And I think that's the issue. That's the bluff that Trump could call of the judges. I mean, any other defendant would have been put in jail by now based on what Trump has done, primarily the threats to the judges and the statements that he's made and the rhetoric that he continues to engage in. But honestly, in this case too, I'm surprised, given the fact that Trump has said over and over again that he's going to keep saying these things are false, that he has said it 22 times in one day during this trial, that it never happened, that it's false. I do think Judge Kaplan, any other defendant, would have either been fined significantly or potentially held in contempt, and could have been put in if he doesn't stop, because he did say he's going to keep doing this 1,000 times. He's going to do it forever. And so that's really the nuclear option that could happen if Trump doesn't abide by the instructions and the rules. But today, Trump's met his match and wasn't going to push it. I think he could see that this judge is not messing around, and if pushed, he'll do whatever it takes to control his courtroom and to stop the torture of E Jean Carroll, which is really what he's doing by every single day, repeating the false lies and the defamation over and over and over again, and continuing to get away with it and have nothing happen to him as a result. So hopefully this jury will see that and will issue significant punitive or punishment damages, because that's really where the big number would come in. And that's the evidence that I think Robbie Kaplan is going to argue to the jury. That's the only way that he will stop, that he has shown and demonstrated by his actions that he's going to keep doing this, keep saying it. And the only thing that will stop him is a significant amount of money. What do you make of the fact that Robbie Kaplan, they didn't discuss his net worth or any statements that he made about money for the damages portion?
They didn't have to, because before he testified and before the plaintiffs closed their case, they showed all of the videos of him bragging that Mar-a-Lago was worth $1.5 billion. So they just took Trump's own words there for the net worth portion, and then she could basically say, look, even if you believe that Mar-a-Lago's $1.5 billion in his own words, let's be real. A verdict here, Karen's not going to be over $1 billion. Even if it was, it would be reduced. I think, you're probably going to have somewhere around $10 million in the economic damages with a 4 or 5 times multiplier, to get you to 50, 60. It's possible you can get a runaway jury that will award hundreds of millions of dollars, although the Supreme Court kind of due process analysis of the scope of punitive damages really puts it under 10x the underlying economic damages. But for it to really be upheld and not subject to any reductions, you're really looking at that 4 to 5 times. Anything higher starts getting the scrutiny. So I think it was enough for them to say, look, Trump's stipulating to his net worth here of $1 billion, $1.5 billion. We're asking for 10 with a multiplier of 5, or use your judgment. One of the things that I think that we can expect in the closing is Roberta Kaplan to say something like, Donald Trump says that he's going to do this 1,000 times. 1,000 times he's going to keep on doing this. So you use your judgment. We think it should be at least 5 to 6 times. but he's saying he's going to do this 1,000 times. So use your judgment. I think I would do something like that. She's a brilliant lawyer, and the way she even utilized the direct just to kind of like she didn't know that whether he was really going to testify, but it was such a great surgical question of, you had your day in court before, correct? You had your day. And then when Trump tried to say, well, but it was my lawyer, he tried to whine and then blame the other lawyer. Objection, sustained, see you later. And now it'll go with the jury after closing arguments. And you and I will keep everybody posted. And Judge Lewis Kaplan not only setting a roadmap, and I'll leave our Legal AF viewers with this conclusion, not only a roadmap for how to control your court, but probably a broader roadmap in how you got to deal with Donald Trump. You got to confront the bully directly. You got to be strong, direct, and unwavering in your conviction for the truth over his BS and bluster. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Hit subscribe right now. Make sure you subscribe to Legal AF on audio, and you can also subscribe to our MeidasTouch newsletter for free, MeidasTouch.com/newsletter. Have a great day.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.